Big jobs from small business. With the jobs report showing job losses, we are focusing on what small business leaders see. Now, we always hear these numbers. Anywhere from 65 to 80% of new jobs actually come from small businesses. So, well, are they hiring, and if not, why? Todd McCracken is president of the National Small Business Association. Lloyd Chapman is president and founder of the American Small Business League. Where do we sit right now, Todd? Are you starting to see real hiring, even if nascent?
You know, honestly, not very much. We're starting to see a lot of some companies seeing some opportunities, and but for the most part, they're taking advantage of those with the staffs they have for a whole variety of reasons. There's a little bit of hiring here and there, but for the most part, if people are already full up, they're just adding some overtime. What
would you say, Lloyd? Would you agree with that or no?
Well, you know, the facts are that small business bankruptcies are up over 44% since last year. Home foreclosures are up to 3.9 million. We lost, what was it, I don't know, 4 million jobs last year.
Right.
And small businesses are cutting jobs for the 23rd consecutive month. So it doesn't look good to me. I don't think the stimulus plan is working, and it's not surprising. You're talking about small business creation. The U.S. Census Bureau says small businesses are responsible for something like 95% of net new jobs. And yet to date, of the $3 trillion we spent to stimulate the economy, small businesses have got less than 3%.
Oh, that's a fair point. I'm just curious what you think, Lloyd, about this, just as an aside that isn't at least worth thinking about. You know, during the boom, credit was so easy to come by that maybe we saw a lot more small business formation with ideas that really weren't worthy of surviving than we normally would have. So now what we're seeing is kind of like everything else, a return to normal. So instead of trying to artificially stimulate more creation or support businesses that shouldn't be in business anyway, we should deal with a new normal.
Well, I don't know if I can agree with that. I just, you know, I look at the basic, you know, premise, you know, again, that there's no question that small businesses create the overwhelming majority of new jobs. They're getting no money from the government, as you know from talking to me before. Today, the federal government will give about $500 million in federal small business contracts to Fortune 500 firms. The SBA is at the lowest staffing and budget, I think, in 30 years, or one of the lowest levels in 30 years. And so you just don't see the government focusing attention on small businesses. Before the commercial, there was a congressman, I don't remember his name, that was talking about they're going to focus on job creation. Well, there's a bill in Congress right now called the Fairness and Transparency Contracting Act, H.R. 2568. It's got 20 co-sponsors. That bill would create more jobs and put more money into the middle-class economy than anything anyone's proposed, and they're dragging their feet on it. So I just don't think Congress really understands the mistake they're making by not focusing more attention on small businesses.
Todd, do you agree, I assume?
Well, I think they do need to focus more attention on small companies. We think that most of the focus ought to be on lending. And while I agree with the point that there probably was too much laxity in the credit markets 2 or 3 years ago, the fact is we think we've seen a serious overcorrection in the other direction. Well, we're not back to normal. We're back to tight credit. And that's got to change.
But what the lenders keep telling us is there isn't much demand.
Well, what they tell us in carefully worded statements is that there's not demand from credit-worthy borrowers, which they define as people they don't want to lend to. And we think that they're defining credit-lending borrowers in a much too strict way. In fact, it does lead to real tightening of credit. You know, last time we came out of a recession, a year after the recession had ended, small businesses had created 1 million jobs, whereas large companies had still continued to shed jobs by the tune of 100 or 200,000. But right now, small businesses, even though this recession appears to have at least hit a bottom, are not adding jobs. And we think the reason is primarily liquidity and access to the credit markets.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Todd,
Thanks.
Lloyd.